Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to October Sunday Live Q&A. Of course, it's not October yet. That's tomorrow. Live via the Awaken the World YouTube channel. Today, understanding what you are. This is another discussion leading towards the October challenge. And if you haven't heard about the challenge, this is the perfect time to find out. Hello, Jennifer. Nice to see you. And we don't have access to Messenger right now, but hello to Debbie, too. I believe that you were planning to be here for one and that you're out there somewhere. Back in merry old England across the pond. So, again, a glorious Sunday to everybody. You know, this is the last day of September. And for me, this is a fitting day right before this October challenge. You know, I can't, this impugned itself upon me, okay, because I didn't think it up, but it hit me, it came to me less than 2 weeks ago. And of course, you know, here we are on the last day of September and preparing for this challenge. And quite out of the blue, so I'm really going by the seat of my pants on it, which is sometimes the best way. And we have rainy skies, and it's cold out. We were up early this morning, and it was dark. Hello, Sharon. Nice to see you. Sharon was here at our place yesterday, and we had turkey and pumpkin pie. Why? Because we don't really do traditional dinners on traditional days. We just kind of do it whenever the urge hits us. And we love having open-minded people come to our table and eat with us and share our food and share conversation. And we always find we end up uplifting each other. That's a beautiful thing, you know. When you get past your sense of self, when you let go of the ideas behind the I, the thing that gets in the way, you know, like, you know, how dare you offend me? How dare you say that to me? And when we drop all that sort of stuff and open ourselves up, that's when the true learning begins from each other, the true communication, the true sharing of ideas and ideals. Understanding what you are, you know, this comes right into play with a whole bunch of things that we were talking about yesterday with Sharon, actually, and I'm going to lead off with some of that. And of course, we're going to start with the relative world. And when I mean the relative world, I'm talking about our, you know, the physical, just the physical. Let's leave out the metaphysical for a minute. Let's just stick with the physical. And hello, Cindy. Nice to see you too. Well, see your icon anyway. By the way, hope everyone enjoyed the meditation this morning. Always looking for feedback, so if there's anything we can do to improve the meditations, let me know. My goal is only to serve you all, to help you on your own path, not to try and give you a path or show you the path. Because as soon as people start going down that road, it's a good idea just to walk away. But instead, provide some extra light and say, you know, here's some of the things that I've gone through on my path and some of the things that I still am going through. And open those doors between us, you know, because truly we are all one. And whenever there is anything done to uplift another, I am personally uplifted and all of humanity is uplifted. And this is the same for all of us, no matter where we are. So in this relative frame of mind, okay, you have this very difficult to grasp and comprehend because the language is always changing, the labels are always changing, and we're so used to labels. Self, this sense of I. And yesterday we talked about the iceberg, or a couple days ago, we talked about the iceberg analogy. And if you haven't heard the iceberg analogy, and unfortunately I think everyone here has, but for those who may watch this after, and for those who have seen it, I ask patience and understanding. Yeah, isn't it beautiful to be dead? It really is. You know, I'm going to segue off to the side here, a little off course for a minute, and let you know that another Debbie's on. Awesome. Hello, Debbie. Great you could make it. I know Debbie had some problems this morning commenting on the YouTube, so it's great to see you online. And, that's one of the beautiful things about a group is we can all share and support each other together. And really, we're one big human group. And within that, there are woven many, many layers upon layers upon layers of groups, from two people right up to all of us, really, really. So, little segue off to the side, speaking about enjoying being dead. Carlos Castaneda, a fantastic series of 10 books that I've personally read of his. And in there, it outlines a very specific procedure for recapitulating your whole existence. And we're going to talk about this in a minute, Debbie. And in that, the final thing to do is to dig your own grave and to bury yourself in the ground. Like not to actually cover yourself up, but to cover the hole over with you in it. And at night in the dark, and then go through your death meditation and fall asleep dead there in the ground. And I got to tell you, I've done it. And it is one of the most amazing, freeing, uplifting experiences you will ever go through. The meditations are beautiful and I love them. But if you ever get the time, and I know it sounds a little macabre, but dig yourself a grave. Talk to me about it beforehand. I'll run you through an abbreviated day-long thing you can do to recapitulate everything in your life, let go and surrender it all. And then lay yourself down in your grave and do a death meditation and die and fall asleep in the grave covered in the ground. It truly is an amazingly freeing experience. So I know that, and here's the thing. A lot of us talk about, the spiritual side of things, and when we speak of the spiritual realm, especially if you've already had the experience of dying, which I've had a couple times now, you really, at an egoic level, and this is the weirdest thing, because ego knows there's more, and it knows that it's not fully gone within the more, so all of a sudden it's okay with the more. Strangest thing all of a sudden. So what happens is this: the ego itself, in its continuing desire to escape suffering and pain of any sort, now wants to go to the other side as opposed to be stuck here, because it understands the other side is better from its egoic point of view. Funny how that works. It is beautiful to be dead from the point of view that the day you die means graduation. That means the reason you came here has been fulfilled. Your particular adventure has come to its conclusion, and now you get to plan and take on a new adventure. If you're living here and you're wishing you were dead, that's a whole different story. And I have seen this before where people say, if I were to die, who would care? Who would even notice? I mean, it'd be a blip in the record of humanity. And Kelly and I were talking about that earlier, and we've talked about it many a time. The seeds that we plant with another that we interact with, we may not even be alive when those seeds come to fruition. There was a beautiful video that showed up on Facebook a few years ago, and it was a small restaurant somewhere, it looked like in Thailand, and a child had just stolen some medication from the pharmacy. And the child had been caught by the pharmacist, and the restaurant owner, a compassionate man, walked over and listened to the boy, asked the boy if he had stolen the medicine because someone was sick at home, and it was his mother. So the restaurant owner compassionately paid for the medication and handed the boy the medication and a small lunch, a bag of food. Roll the clock ahead 30 years later, and you can well imagine that even the good deeds we have done like that to others, we've forgotten by 30 years. And that restaurant owner has a heart attack. There he is, lying in the hospital. His daughter facing selling the restaurant because the bills for his surgery and hospital stay are so high. The boy grew up to become a doctor. And not only did the surgery, but paid for it. It's beautiful. It truly is. It brings me to tears every time, as I said to Kelly earlier when I came to tears telling her exactly the same story, that, and I will say to you the same thing that I said to her. I'm always amazed that human beings spend so much time worrying about their existence, when in fact you have been lovingly cared for every step of the way. Not in the times that you may have thought someone was needed or something was needed, but in the times when it was really needed. Someone shows up. An unexpected occurrence. A chance meeting. This is the gift of this relative existence. You can stop worrying about what's going to happen to you and start living. Now, a lot of this gets wrapped up, of course, in the concept of people desiring that absolute experience, desiring that connection to the absolute. And this is where things become a little tricky, and we have to, that one does keep circling, and those are the sort of posts that are worth watching again and again, because they remind us of what we truly can be. We tend to chase after the experience of God, the experience of the Creator, the bliss of that oneness. And, there's a gift in the relative world that the absolute does not have. And this is why the absolute, or that sea of creation, chose to create this relative playground. In order for you to experience bliss, you must experience the other side of bliss. In order to experience cold, you must experience the other side of cold. Heat, for example. Up needs down, left needs right, in needs out. As I've said before, in this relative universe, you can never have an experience that does not contain the seeds of the other half. And, we talk about the other half, and we're so conditioned by the words like the light and the dark and the yin and the yang that we misunderstand that it is the coming together of those two energies and the intermixing of those energies that produces this relative experience. When you look at the yin and yang, a lot of people will miss this, but the really, really important details are not the big obvious line that sits, the big obvious line that sits between the two halves, the white and the black. It is actually the circle in which the yin and yang is contained, and the two dots of opposing energies within the two larger paisleys, if you will. That is the real message of the yin and yang. That even a highly awakened being such as Christ still has a balancing piece of that darkness, of the opposing energy. Why? Because it is the intermixing of the two that allows creation. And that all-encompassing circle is exactly that. The all-encompassing circle representing oneness, wholeness, integration. The experience we're looking for should be approached from the point of view of love. You know, Rumi was famous for this, and there was a gentleman who showed up, and I believe Kelly posted it to the Facebook group page today, about a man who came from, I believe it was Pakistan, correct me if I'm wrong, honey?
Yes.
Yeah. And he worked double shift 7 days a week, sent all his money back home, got into driving limo, eventually opened a restaurant, and he feeds 15,000 homeless people a year like they're regular customers. Where is God? He sees God in everyone. Worshipping that God is not something done in a pew, or at least not something done staying in a pew all the time. It is active. And Debbie, you're absolutely right. And it doesn't matter if we're talking about good and evil or pain here versus not pain. It is the judgments that we put on things that we end up labeling, and we end up looking for the answers. Now, this is a very good thing. It has to happen, okay? We have to label and judge and cause ourselves suffering in order to pinprick ourselves awake from the dream. And it is because of the way our world has evolved through our own choices that is becoming more and more the case, and the pinpricks, unfortunately, are getting larger and larger. And that's literally what we're doing. A lot of the searching that people is doing, and in the beginning, everyone's search, with the exception of people who have spontaneous awakenings, okay, everyone's search begins with a desire to escape some perceived sense of suffering or pain. And that's okay. We will all suffer until we understand that we need not suffer. Eckhart Tolle. And he's absolutely right. We all want to have that feeling of bliss all the time. That's a perfectly normal egoic reaction. You don't like pain, nobody does. We don't like to suffer internally or externally, like through someone stabbing you with a knife, or the suffering of the things that we generate in our own minds about ourselves. So we seek ways out of that suffering. And we want that bliss, and we think that bliss should be there all the time, but we don't understand that in that bliss we would lose ourselves. The idea is to refine, to come closer and closer to the light that you already are. Cindy says, experiencing each side makes us aware of the other. We just don't want to get, exactly. You don't want to get stuck there. You don't want to dive into it, but you need to see it. You need to experience it. And it is in your thoughts and your perceptions about what you're experiencing that will generate the feelings. Now, as I said, something that came up yesterday that we were talking about, this has to do with your egoic sense of self. And this can help heal you in a lot of ways to become aware of what's really happening, okay? Because it's really about understanding what you are. And we can go right to, well, I'm an infinitely powerful spiritual being, which is absolutely true. But that doesn't work if you don't know where to put the magic suit on from. I don't know if you remember Greatest American Hero. I'm probably dating myself horribly. But, plain old guy who knew he was something more. But no matter how much he knew he was something more, it wasn't until he put the suit on. And we all want to put that suit on. That powerful spiritual being suit. Our own Superman or Superwoman suit. And the issue that we face, of course, is that first and foremost, we have to accept exactly where we are. Kelly honestly tried with one time. She was arguing with me about her family, and she said, Jesus would have walked right up to my mother's door and knocked on the door and compassionately said, Mom, you and I need to sit down and talk, and you're going to listen to what I have to say. And I looked at her and I said, honey, you're not Jesus. And you're certainly not where Jesus was at. And in truth, we all already are, but we have ourselves fooled that we're not. The point being is wherever you are in your existence, whatever your level of consciousness is, the last thing you want to do is fool yourself into believing that you're somewhere else in your level of consciousness. Be okay with where you're at. It's not a race. There's no better or worse, good or bad, should or should not be. It's not like school where you need a certain grade percentage by a certain time in order to pass. It's nothing like that. Once you accept where you are, you can begin to understand what's happening to you on a regular basis. And this is it with ego. And this is the real big one that everyone has to remember, especially going forward into October, if you want this challenge to work for you as best as possible. There's not only one I in there. There's a whole bunch of I's in your head. Yeah, exactly. Slapped right back into reality. And unfortunately, Debbie, it is a little bit like school. In your head, you have a whole bunch of yous, and each one of those I's is whatever you, wherever you got caught in your life, energetically, the ego splits itself. It creates a new you. And the you that you were then kind of gets locked in. Now, these usually happen with bad experiences, okay? So, for example, with myself, deep inside of me, I found out years ago there was a little 5-year-old boy who was blanking out his memories of his father sexually abusing him and his sister, both in the same room. My sister was 3 at the time. And that little 5-year-old kid, I didn't really have a true ego at that time, but with the experience up to date, that experience was segregated, i.e. that experience was split off. And that energetic memory of that experience, just like a memory in the computer, was a disruptive memory. It was a dissonant memory. In a computer, we would call it a contaminated memory location. And that contaminated memory location, just like in a computer, can cause occasional blips in the software and in the hardware, in the system itself, not in the hardware, but in the software, in the running of it. This is what happens with us. Wherever you've had an experience in your life that has driven your ego to segregate itself and split itself, and a lot of times these splits are very soft. It doesn't happen in a ripping occasion as a sexual assault by your own father in the middle of the night does. Some of the splits happen gradually. The ego pressure builds up on the ego over time, and then all of a sudden a split occurs. And the entire bundle of experience under that last ego that it could not handle the pressure of anymore is another I, another identity, another you within you. And I know it's hard to take, and I hope that everyone's understanding. And now I'm going to explain why and how this happens and what you can do about it. First, an example, and we've all experienced this if you think about it. Have you ever ran into one of those situations for whatever reason you go totally unconscious? You normally would not get into a yelling and screaming match with someone or a fisticuffs or whatever the case may be, and you find yourself deeply embroiled in one of those, and when it's over, it's like you wake back up out of a dream. And the first thing you say to yourself is, what the hell was that? And you're speaking to yourself because you're like, who was that? I don't behave that way. That's not me. You are it's like you weren't even there. Here's what happens. You, the I that's present normally today, right now, that sense of self, that I, was co-opted completely by the I that was damaged by the experience in your past that most closely represents the experience you just had. So you want to look at that person, for example, that you've just had that experience with them, see the way you feel about him, see the way, and look in your past to see if there's someone else in your past at a time that you feel something happened to you. And it doesn't always necessarily have to be bad. Sometimes those splits are based on good things that happen. And this is not bad anywhere. It's not about should or should not, or you're damaged or undamaged. Everybody is going through this. But being aware of it is half the battle. Being aware that there are all these different levels of I inside of you that are struggling for control depending on what's going on. And if the vibration that you find yourself in presently matches close enough the vibration from that past event version of you is going to take you over. You are going to go to sleep. It is a trigger, but trigger is a very loose word for it, Debbie. What you really need to understand is that the Debbie that you are right now, the Debbie that wishes to be in a state of contact with the oneness of all and the divine, to feel unconditional love in her heart, gets co-opted from time to time by other versions of Debbie. And those other versions of Debbie are triggered by current events that closely mimic the past event. It can also be triggered by current thinking, where your thoughts and your dwelling on that past event and what you feel it has done to you in your existence causes the triggering of that past Debbie energetic entity to take over. It is sort of like a multiple personality disorder, but we all have it. Don't kid yourself, and they all come out. The problem is in most people, when we talk about multiple personality disorder, there are very few what they call true cases of multiple personality. And in those cases, the segregation of ego is so severe that an entirely new entity has to be developed. Does that make sense? Does everyone understand what I've just said? Multiple personality disorder involves a split of ego where the trauma is so severe that the ego can no longer go on as its current self. It cannot manufacture a new self with the same past and the same name and the same person, so it manufactures a whole new personality, complete with a new name, oftentimes a different sex, a different age. And I believe that will help with the explanation. In Kelly's case, and since she wrote down, I will give the example here. When Kelly and I were outside of this was the first year after Kelly and I got together, and she had the big blow up over Christianity with her family, and her mother stopped talking to her, and the whole 9 yards. And we pulled up to a Shoppers Drug Mart, and 12 feet away was the glass to the store. And from the car, Kelly could see her mother through the glass shopping in an aisle. And I'm very energy sensitive. Well, Kelly shifted so fast into that 8-year-old version of herself, and so strongly, because of an event that happened with her and her mom when Kelly was 8, that for a brief moment, there was actually a child sitting in the car with me. I know it wasn't registered at an eye level, but there was an image that came, a brief image, and Kelly disappeared as a 50-some-odd-year-old woman and was replaced by an 8-year-old child in a sundress with a look of sheer horror on her face. That was that 8-year-old version of Kelly still resident within her, along with all the other Kellys, taking control, popping right up. Exactly, Cindy. Yeah, you're an independent, mature adult, and you revert to a young girl when you visit your parents. And we all, ego is crazy. I mean, Eckhart Tolle said it. He said, if we were to look at ego and look at humanity, or any one ego, I mean, here's the deal. Remember how his book, A New Earth, begins, right? He's a university student, and he's on the bus, and there is a woman with her head down having a conversation with nobody out loud. And it's an earnest conversation, and she sounds a little bit upset or, intense. And then a short time later, he finds himself in the bathroom, and you realize he's doing the same thing, except he's inside his head. So we judge the woman on the bus crazy, and we don't judge ourselves a little nuts. We all are a little crazy when it comes to ego. And you know what? It's okay. It really is. Because it's really about awareness. It's really about understanding what's going on with you. So if you can understand that what you are at that tip of the iceberg level, what you are above the water, above the depth, sitting out in the cold, fresh air, the limited version of you isn't just one you. It is a whole bunch of yous. And that's why the one of you today gets oftentimes subverted and kicked around the block by other yous. Other versions of you that are within you. Now, there's really two ways to go about dealing with those things. One, and I would recommend this, is that you start keeping a journal. You pay attention to your dreams, because your dreams will help talk to you about what those issues are and help bring those past things back. I also invite you to actively work with yourself. The universe is speaking to you all the time. And when it puts one of those people in front of you again that triggers the same sort of reaction as you had 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years ago, that is the compassion of the Creator coming through in your existence. That is you being given another opportunity, not a chance, because you can't mess this up, another opportunity to catch it, to change the outcome, to create something new. And then, in that moment, you release that old version of yourself. More correctly, I'm going to scratch that completely because there's nothing released. More correctly, you have tuned that dissonant vibratory memory state that was defective, if we're going to call it that, okay, in comparison to the rest of your vibratory state. You have tuned it back into alignment with the current version of you. And you become more powerful for that. You have more of the energy of you, of your awareness, now available because of it. And it's a process. You're going to have to work through it. A lot of these things are like deep little darts stuck in us. And some of them aren't very obvious. Some are like little slivers that have just been there for a very long time. This is all, again, at that surface iceberg level. But, you know, and again, I believe we talked about this yesterday with Sharon. And Sharon, I'm sorry if I'm, you know, boring you with kind of repeating myself here a little. But, you know, not all of us are going to have that awakening experience anytime soon. Not a lot of people may have it in this life. That's all right. But the surest way to get into the right place for it is to work on rarefying your own level of egoic consciousness as you sit with yourself. See, the more open you become, the more accepting you become, the more of your natural good vibratory state that you yearn for and wish to be in, the more that you heal these items in your past, the more open you become to the natural and spontaneous unfolding of your direct connection with that divine. Absolutely, Cindy, you know, and if your husband ever wants to talk about it, let me know. You know, I suffered from recurring nightmares when I was young, recurring nightmares around my sister. And long story short, you know, the sexual abuse had been going on for quite a while prior, believe it or not, to age 5, okay? And those dreams were coming out of me at age 5 prior to actually remembering. Well, I didn't remember any experience, to be honest, until I was much older. But I had nightmares. And in those nightmares, it involved rescuing my sister from the other side of the city against these evil little underground guys. They were hideous little creatures with strange little magic wands. And, you know, I was 5 years old, okay? So, like, this was not an acid trip. But honestly, as with anybody, if anyone ever needs to talk to me, what you say is between you and I and Kelly, okay? Because I share everything with Kelly and oftentimes rely on her for input. But I'm always here for you and always will be. Once you understand what's happening in your head, once you understand that you are, you know, going unconscious from what you want to be right now and being subsumed by that other version, a witch in the attic. That sounds interesting. Yeah, anytime. You let them know. I'm here. You know, we can talk about it. We can start exploring why. Dig it out. That's what I always say, and get rid of it. Well, not get rid of it. Reincorporate it. So once you understand what's going on with you, now you have some new weapons in your toolbox of awareness to deal with the things that are happening. You can begin to look, as I've always said, at the alarms that your body intelligence does for you, right? When you start to feel bad, it means your body's saying to you, your thinking is out of whack. And you can catch yourself and you can examine, was that me thinking that? Or was that an older version of myself that's still caught in that place? And if I am caught in that place, I need to look at that place. I need to understand what happened. And Kelly and I talked about the power of perceptions yesterday, and despite hearing it over and over again, it blew her mind yet again when we take the word problem in our lives and we replace it with the perception and the label of puzzle. See, this is both the strength and the weakness of a label. We unintentionally, Sharon, anytime, as with all our group members, we love you from the bottom of our heart. You are our sister. You are a member of our human family. And whatever we can do for you, we do for us as well. So, of course. Back to problem and puzzle. The everything, as I said, is a balance of those two dualities, right? In every weakness is the strength. And in every strength is the weakness. It's all about the harmony of the two. It always will be. So in the case of a problem, we have labeled problem, and we already subconsciously feel a whole bunch of things about problems. Most of it involving fear, dread, and, problem. But if you look at the way you feel about the word puzzle, you'll either feel pleasant about it or you'll really have no feeling about it. It'll be a neutral word for you. The next time someone says we have a problem, say, no, we don't. We have a puzzle. The label, you can use the power of labels correctly. And that is to change your perceptions. Use the power of language. Be aware, and Kelly will tell you, I am a bugbear for language, and there's a reason for it. Your language has power when you're unconsciously aware. And most of us are being unconsciously programmed and manipulated by the use of language and how we choose to identify with the label. Be wary of the language you use. Examine the language you use. A meme. Relentless with language. Yeah, see, the nice thing about a puzzle, Debbie, is that instead of being a problem, a puzzle becomes an opportunity. A problem represents a wall. It's a block to us doing something, or a block to us getting what we feel we want at the time. And let me tell you, having a puzzle is great. Because a puzzle is just that. It can be fun. It could be an adventure. And the beautiful thing about a puzzle is you don't have to do the puzzle all the time. You can fumble around and stick a few pieces in here and there and look for the right opening. But puzzles teach patience. Puzzles teach us to look a little deeper. Everyone thought turn problems into puzzles was a fairly shallow quote, I bet, on the surface. Kelly will tell you that when you think that I've taken you down as far as you can go, I'm going to show you another chasm that you cannot see the bottom of. And problems into puzzles go so much deeper. How do you do a puzzle? By looking at it closely, by being aware of the function and reality of every little piece. And when you look closely, you will see that the universe is not actually bringing you what you used to call a problem. It is bringing you a glorious puzzle where all the pieces are sitting right in front of you. You don't have to go hunt the puzzle pieces. You don't have to struggle to even find where the pieces go. You just have to look closely, and they will begin to become evident. Now, of course, the big caveat to all that, as with all things, is Many times in our lives, we are shown over and over again what we need to do, but for some reason, we simply don't do it. And then we wonder why we feel the same way that we did 1 year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 6 months ago. No judgment. The human race is a race of procrastinators by default. The reason being is it's linked deep into our genetic past again in our reptilian brain. Conservation of energy. End of story. Survival equals conservation of energy. A cheetah makes a very calculated, life-risking situation every time it chases down an animal. Because the cheetah knows it only has so many chases in it. And if it doesn't get food within that number of chases, it's going to be too weak to chase, and it's going to become the chased. We have that within us. Inherent laziness is truly built into the human race. I just read a great study on CBC about it. Explains all the reasons why we typically don't stick with exercise plans and many of these other things. But again, knowledge is power. Awareness that it's happening unconsciously to us gives us the ability to consciously, in awareness, step beyond that. And that's what I'm asking of all of you who wish to take part in this challenge. I'm not asking you to believe in me. I'm asking you to believe in yourself. I'm asking you to look deep within yourself and see that no matter what you may think you are, on any level, you'd really like to feel it really deeply. You'd like to have it resonate out of your being all the time. Not so you can live in a state of perfect bliss, but so that you can live in a state of balance, where what appears to be going on in the relative is balanced by your dual awareness at the same time of both realms. You know, I was in our backyard last night and it was dark and the solar lights were on around the pond and there was the Torii Gate in the shadows, a little bit lit by the light. And at the same time I was looking at the physical objects, a second sight was aware of just this field of particle energy. That is the state of being that I wish for you and wish for you to exist in, where you're aware of the table and the solidity of the table, and yet you are also aware of the wondrous glowing play of light that truly is the table. Moving beyond that outer level of the iceberg, of course, is about going into the depths. Moving past that small self, that surface layer, and going deep submerged into the big S, the big self. To do that, and I know I've kept everyone for a long time today, so I will try to wrap this up rather quickly. To do that only takes a commitment to you. Your commitment is not to find the divine, for the divine is with you always. The commitment is to find your true self, which is with you always. And it begins with the willingness to sit with me and meditate. I'm going to start with one tomorrow that I have advertised. This is all going to be on the Facebook group page to encourage as much communication and contact as possible. I will try to record the videos and upload them to YouTube as well, although not as quickly, obviously. You know, Debbie, the fact that you get glimpses of that peace, you know, those glimpses are like looking at yourself. Most of your mirror is still dusty, but you've rubbed off spots in the mirror of yourself. And you're seeing little shards of light, little bits of that light. You are that entire mirror. The dust will come off. It might not come off on your timeline. And that's the thing about humans. Kelly's famous for this too. But it will come off. And this can help take it off. So the invitation is to sit with me twice a day. Tomorrow morning, we're going to talk about times. I'm probably going to do the first one at 5:30 a.m. And the one in the evening will be flexible, and we'll meet if we can and if not. And don't worry, I'm going to be with you many, many times. Silver shells. Meditation scares me. I get this feeling and I think it is love, and then I completely tense up. Why would love scare me? You know, that's a really big question, actually, and I would not do you the disservice of answering that off the cuff. But I will say, look within yourself, be honest with yourself, and see if there's a couple versions of you hanging around from the past that don't feel worthy of love. Or perhaps fear the loss of love, and therefore don't want the love in case it's taken away. Perhaps again, if it's already happened. And as always, silver shells, as you know, I am here to speak to you at any time. Feel free to get a hold of me. Don't be afraid of meditation, though. A lot of people are afraid of meditation. Egoically, they are, because meditation brings you to face yourself. And this is what's really it's all about, is facing yourself. So we're going to start on the first day with a So-Hum meditation. Each meditation will be before and maybe a tiny bit after a short talk. I will try to keep everyone to, within an hour at most in the morning. And I've already put on the group page for tomorrow, and then we'll get on a regular schedule as far as the mornings goes. The evenings are going to be touch and go. That schedule will develop, and you can always do it after the fact or catch up on it. They'll be there for you. The pathway there's really nowhere any of us need to get to. And this is that beautiful dichotomy of this relative world. We all think we're on a journey somewhere. And in truth, we are all hand in hand. No, tomorrow morning, Debbie, it is at, I believe, 9 a.m. It's posted in the announcements. But I'm thinking about 5:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time to accommodate as many people as possible east of where we are, since we're pretty much as far west as you can get time zone-wise. Beside us is the ocean sort of deal. The pathway, as I said, and the reason for this, a lot of people just kind of putter out. My commitment to you is I'll be there for you every day. That's my commitment to you. I will be there to meditate with you. I will guide you, if you will allow me, through various types of meditations to help you release your concepts of self, open yourself to your higher self. As well as, if people are willing, I've been contemplating doing a live streaming meditative hypnosis session to help even more quickly release those things that are holding you back from being what you truly are. And more importantly, you already are that. It's feeling it, right? Feeling it and therefore knowing it. That's all for today. Much love. Thank you all for being here. And again, let's make this month of October This is the time of year. Everything has its season. And in this season, all of nature is saying to us, our time of action, of the expenditure of that life force, is over for now. It's time to go inside. It's time to hibernate the sense of self and engage the meditation of winter, the retreat of the spring and summer, and the meditation and retreat of winter that allows us to renew ourselves and make ourselves whole, and then emerge again in the spring, brand new, more glorious than before, more revealed than before, more whole than before. Have a wonderful, wonderful Sunday afternoon. Much love. Take care.